What's up, guys? Welcome back to the vlog. Starting out with the usual, you know, some Mountain Ops Yeti. Just gonna get ready and go to the gym, do the morning thing. Today I'm gonna be spending the morning mostly getting ready for a steelhead trip. This will be my third trip out there. And it's kind of funny because the first time I ever went out and tried to fish for steelhead, I caught 0. I was able to hook into one, but we never did land the dang thing. So the second trip, I was really out for redemption, and I ended up catching my first steelhead right behind the cabin we stayed in. Beautiful fish. It was a native chromer, they call it. And that got me pretty stoked on catching more. So the next few days following after that first one, we did get into them big time. Well, keeping it simple today, just starting with a pre-workout. I'll come back for my post-workout shake. Well, I was thinking before I pack and everything today, I'll do a little story time on a couple of my favorite elk sheds that I have here. There's so many to do stories on, and they're such great stories. So I think I'll start with some of my favorites that are on display out here. And there's a couple sets in there, and 2 singles, those right side singles, and then there's, you know, 4 more over here, which are matches to some of the bulls over there. Story time is always fun, man. It is almost time to look for elk sheds. It's almost time to shed hunt this year for elk. The elk should be dropping over the next month and a half. And as soon as I get back from the steelhead fishing trip in Oregon, it'll be go time. Here we go, guys, on the road to my second home, the gym. I don't know if I've ever shown on my YouTube channel, but some people on my Instagram account, which if you're not following, go follow me on Instagram. I'm definitely the most active on Instagram out of all the social media platforms. But what I was gonna say is some people on Instagram have noticed through my stories and posts there that I actually have 2 gym memberships, one to Vasa Fitness and one to 24 Hour Fitness. And they always ask me, why do you have 2 gym memberships? I'm grandfathered into this place. I'm not a huge fan of Vasa Fitness. It's okay. I think they can do a better job on keeping the facility clean and keeping their equipment up to date and functional. I'm grandfathered into Vasa Fitness because across the street, there used to be a gym called Lifestyles 2000. And I was a VIP member for that, a lifetime member at $5 a month or $60 per year. So when Gold's Gym purchased that gym, it brought its contracts and clients with it, which at first they really wanted to fight. And then the state of Utah stepped in and said, nope, if you're buying this business, you're gonna have to offer these existing contracts. And then it went from Gold's Gym to now Vasa Fitness. And yeah, so I'm a lifetime member here for $60 a year. I don't really consider that too big of an expense. And because they're closed, or not closed, but they have short hours on Sundays, and they also seem to be closed a lot more often for holidays that the 24 Hour Fitness is not. So I have 2 memberships, one to Vasa, one to 24. Man, another episode of Truck Talk. I feel like I'm always back and forth to the gym talking to you guys, but that's all right. It's fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. Chandler just pulled up. This guy. What's the deal?
What's up, money?
No text?
I swear you said you were going out of town.
I am going out of town today, but not till later. I fly out at 3.
Oh.
What are you training?
Little legs.
All right, you can
blast some legs.
You can have legs day. I'm still sore.
What? What are you gonna do?
Back and finish triceps. Quick reminder, starting April 1st, I'll have a 90-day fitness program, which is powered through videos and meal samples and stuff like that, and it's all going to be hosted at mountainops.com. They actually are doing a 90-day challenge, a transformation challenge, where the winner of the 90-day challenge will win cash and other prizes. So just a reminder, if anybody's interested in losing weight or getting fit this summer, April 1st, keep it in mind. We're back in town. I just got back last night from the Oregon steelhead fishing trip. Like I promised, we're gonna go over some shed stories with you. We're gonna start with this stack out here, which I leave out here for somewhat of decoration. The majority of them, like I said, are sets, but there's some good singles in here. There's this set. This is the replica set of the Firebull, so I'll move those, get them out of the way, and then we'll just go set by set, single by single, and do a little story time. These things are so cool, guys. They weigh almost exactly what the set weighs, but these are replicas, which I just have for fun, taking them to expos and whatnot. You know what's really cool is the kids. Kids absolutely love them coming by the booth, checking those out. So, alright, we're going to start with this bad boy. One of my all-time favorite elk sheds right here. Big old 7-point. Seriously, one of the coolest elk sheds I've ever found. There he is. So this guy, a big 7-point. I was cruising up a ridge, just kind of following the main spine of the ridge. And I really got to this big, tall patch of oak brush. And it was funny because I kind of had to make a decision to go left or right. And I just about started to go left and figured, now I'm just going to go right. And then right as I went around the patch of oak, this thing was just laying there. And I knew right away it was a big bull. I never did see this bull on the hoof, but I was told the year that I've had him right here, he was a 7x7. So I found the one side, never did find the match. Never heard of anybody else finding the match. I would love to know if somebody had this thing. But this at the time was probably my biggest scoring elk shed. Who knows, it could be. I haven't really put a tape measure to any of these. The next year, this bull came back, and on one of his sides, he just grew almost like a double sword. This point got even longer. And the next year, I know he scored right around 400. But he was super lopsided. His left side, if I remember, his right side was super strong, and then his left side dropped a lot for whatever reason. But the year after this, he was huge, and his antlers were just so much darker. He had the big, heavy fronts. I mean, these things kind of got that cucumber look on them, where they're super heavy. But that third had something going on right here that broke off. But the year after, somebody locally down on that mountain range found him, and they are so cool. I always wanted to get that set from the guy, but he'd never let him go, which I totally understand. But that is one of my personal favorite sheds ever. I absolutely love when elk have that extra point right there. So big old 7, one of my favorites. Next up, I'm going to pull out 2 big singles. This guy and this guy. Those are 2 of my favorite typicals. Same bull, 2 consecutive years in a row, both the right sides, obviously. I never did find the match to either of these, but I do know who has the match to this year, which this is the newest year. A lot of people would think that the longer year is the new year. So he actually went down from this year to that year. And for whatever reason, his second on the big year grew a lot like the third. The year after, it definitely pulled back in, looks more like a typical second point, but just a big, heavy bull. I never saw him on the hoof, but I know a lot of people that did. They say he was really narrow. Just the big unders, not much in the back end, but not a bad back end. And I know there was a set picked up by my friend the year before, and then maybe a set or 2 afterwards by a couple other shed hunters who got lucky and found their sets. Burrs on these things are huge. Just those big, concave, heavy white burrs. I mean, the mass on the front points on both ears are super cool. The newer year is a little heavier up here. But yeah, one of my favorite bulls, and to have 2 years of them, I thought that was pretty cool. So this is the first year I picked him up. The year before this, my buddy Logan picked up both sides. And we were right there together, 3 of us shed hunting together, and he got lucky and scooped up both sides. He wasn't this big the year before, but he had that same frame. I mean, this bull has literally just not changed his frame whatsoever from year to year. Big, heavy base, long unders. Those 1s, 2s, and 3s are just super long. And then that same back end. So he was pretty narrow. For people who saw him, he's just kind of tall and narrow, but just a stud bull. I would have loved to pick up more sets off him. So this year, I was just cruising up the ridge, hiking this big south slope. I just about cut left. Well, I started to work up the ridge left, and I looked to my right. And with my bare eyes, I can see what I thought was a shed. Pulled up the binoculars and confirmed it. It was this bad boy laying there in the oak brush. Bummed I never did match him up, but just a nice, heavy old bull. Same side the year after, like I said. I was up on a big ridge, glassing to the next south-facing slope, and I actually glassed this one up. And I can tell it was a knife shed. At the time, I couldn't tell that it was this bull until I got over there, but as soon as I scooped him, I knew right away it was the same bull I picked up the year before. I absolutely love sheds like this, whether they score or not. Just big bulls with huge bases that are just heavy, dense, brown sheds, but again, just a stud. Next up is one of my favorite sets. This bull is just like those others. It is so heavy, super dense, big triple brow. This was the first bull that I ever found that had like a true triple brow and you know, like an extra second there, extra third, whatever you want to call it. This bull got killed the year after and scored in the mid 380s, I think. Never put a tape to these, but I'm sure they're in the 370 range. Just a stud, super heavy, old bull. Look at the base. I love these big bases like that. Still got some hair there. I found them late in the spring. Most people had kind of given up on the area, and I decided to go up there and do some glassing. My goal from the get-go was to actually glass as much country as I could, and I glassed both of them up. They were only about 70 yards away from each other. So this is his left side. It's not as strong, but he's got a good back end. He kind of had weak thirds, and then just again, he's just super beaded out, super heavy. But man, I was so stoked when I glassed these up, because I got up on the ridge and it started a thunderstorm on me. And I almost turned around because the weather looked like it wasn't going to clear up, but I decided to stick it out. I built a fire and stayed up on the mountain, and because of that I was able to glass these up. Let's see if I can step back and put them together for you. Alright, those aren't always in the frame. Got some bad lighting. I'll have to do this in a better place next time. But yeah, these things, guys, heavy. Some of the heaviest antlers I've ever found, and just cool old bull. I knew he'd be in danger the following year for being this big on that mountain range, and sure enough, he got killed the next year. Yeah, that's one of my favorite sets right there. Big heavy suckers. This was a cool set right here, big brown set I found. I was in an area with a ton of tracks, and I just knew that there had to be some brown sheds in there, and I was just really working this ridge when I found, actually I found this side first, the 7-point side. And it was kind of cool because it had recently snowed. It snowed after the bull had shed, so a lot of this back end was actually covered up in snow. So I didn't really know if he was a 6 or a 7-point, and I remember dusting off the snow slowly going down his main beam. And then that exposed that 7th point, which I thought was super cool. His royal's busted on this side, but I don't think it would have been as long as the other side. He's kind of got a weird shape to him, like his main beam kind of has some bend in it. But this is the first side I found, and I just knew that no one had been up there. I knew the other side had to be close, so I just started to work and grid until I found the other side. So I was cruising on this ridge, you know, looking up, looking down, kind of side hilling it at the time, and I looked up and I was zigzagging. So I'd already walked by this once, but I looked up and spotted it. It was tucked up in some brush, big time. And as soon as I saw it though, I knew it was the other side. The main beam kind of gave it away, the way it's got this shape to it. His second's not as long on this side, but back then, I mean, this was years ago, I was so stoked. The funny thing about these sheds is they're not dense like those other sets I already showed you. These things don't weigh nearly as much. They're like one of those bulls that feels hollow. You know, there's not a lot of density and weight to them. But a great set and probably a good scoring bull. I'm sure he's, I don't know, 360, something like that, 365 maybe. Just a really cool bull. Kind of lopsided with different lengths on some of the points, but definitely one for the keeper pile for sure. This next set is one of my all-time favorites. He's a 5-point frame, and man, these are heavy and dense, kind of like those other ones. They weigh a lot. They got little devil's tines, but he's got extra points back here, but I mean, his main frame is basically a 5-point frame. I was cruising down the ridge. I already had a backpack full of sheds, and I was just basically beelining it to the truck when I found the right side, this one. He was kind of in a manzanita bush. When I saw it and grabbed it, compared to everything else I had in my backpack, even though it didn't have, you know, a 6-point frame, it was so much longer and so much heavier than anything I had that day. So I was so happy, but I also knew I had to get to the truck because my buddy had already gotten to the truck. And it took me like 2 or 3 more hikes up there to finally turn up the match. And what had happened is I was really focused below it. And I decided when I finally went back, I need to get up above it where I found this one and just zigzag. And that's when I found it just dumped right into a green bush. Pretty tough to see, but yeah, that's one of my favorite sets, and I might mount that on my dad's elk cape. I'll go grab him and show you guys. Here he is. So this would have been, let's see, 5, 6, 7, like an 8 point. Those two are chipped off, and the biggest one is broke off. That little one, I don't know if it's long enough to score. But yeah, big devil's tine, so 9 with that, I guess. But yeah, basically a big 5. One of my favorite sets, definitely this guy will forever be in the keeper stash. So yeah, these ones are the same. A heavy, dense antler. They weigh a lot. One of my favorite sets, like I said. Big burrs, big white burrs. I love those. And then yeah, just matching devil's tines. Awesome thirds. Pretty symmetrical for what he is. That's a bull I'd love to see on the hoof. Never saw him. Some other hunters said that he typically sheds like way far away from where I found these, and they were surprised at the time that I had picked these up where I did. But another big heavy set that will forever and ever be in the keeper pile. So there you have it, guys. There's a look at some of my favorites. There's still a lot more to go through in the sheds pile in there, but these are some of my all-time favorites. Mostly browns. Well, they're all brown. This one's a little faded from finding it late, but big heavy sheds, big heavy elk sheds are my favorite. Score or no score, if they're old, big, heavy old bulls, absolutely love picking up those heavy old bulls. Actually, it's shed season, guys. Like, elk shed hunting is on for the next 2 months, and I'm so excited. I've got a trip planned with my girlfriend Bridget. We do a 10-day trip on her spring break every year. That's actually what I'm going to do next, is just get ready for that. Make sure the trailer's ready, make sure all our gear is ready. But I hope you guys enjoyed some of these shed stories. After these next 10 days, I should have a lot more stories for you, and of course, videos that are going to be up on the Hushin' channel. But I just want to say thanks for watching, guys. I just have this channel for fun. I really like sharing stories. I like doing this kind of stuff, and who knows, maybe I'll start uploading more often if I find the time. But I do appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate all of you who subscribe. Thank you so much. So thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next video.